Hi, and welcome to the webinar today, 3 Habits of Highly Successful People. My name's Matt Wilkinson, and I'm the CEO of Biz Inc. And I'll soon be introducing my guest for this session, Alex Edson of MailTag. Just before we get started, just wanted to cover off a little bit of housekeeping. So if you've got any questions for myself or Alex, or any technical problems, just use the questions panel to do that, and we'll either answer the questions as the session goes, or most likely at the end, where we'll stick around for a Q&A. And any technical questions, then we will try and get those resolved as the webinar goes on. So I know many of you listening won't enjoy sales, and I would guess I was the same. Even though I'd run businesses since I left university, I only really started getting involved in business-to-business sales when I was in my 30s. And I wish I'd started a lot sooner, because since I've learned some sales skills, it's really helped every aspect of running a business for me. From negotiation to marketing to customer service, it's helped right across the board. And I think a common misconception is that sales is about personality, when it's not. It's about being systematic, detailed, and thorough, which are all the strengths of accountants and bookkeepers. And it's also about habits. And that's what my guest today, Alex Edson, who is the CEO of MailTag, is going to be talking to you about. So I'm going to let Alex tell you a bit about himself just in just a second. Um, but before I do that, I just wanted to let you know that MailTag is and how I discovered Alex and MailTag. It's one of our key sales tools at Biz Inc. It's something that we use day in and day out. So I'm delighted that Alex has made the time to present this session for you today. And I'm going to hand over to him to tell you a bit more about himself and get on with the session today, which is 3 Habits of Highly Successful Salespeople. Over to you, Alex.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
If anyone can't hear Alex, just fire a question into the questions panel, and we'll get that sorted for you. So you crack on, Alex, and we'll make sure everyone can hear and see you okay.
Awesome. Thanks, and thanks for the introduction, Matt. So believe it or not, everyone, this is also my first webinar that I've ever done. So a little nervous, but super happy to be here. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here, Matt. And as everyone talked about, the purpose of this webinar is, to help each of you become as successful as possible in sales with an outbound strategy. And we'll sort of talk about what that means in a little bit. But as per the topic of this webinar, we'll also cover 3 habits that I've observed in the most successful salespeople that I've personally hired for my own companies. So you can immediately begin, implementing these habits into your own businesses. Near the end, I'll also give everyone here some super effective outreach templates that I personally use, along with some technology recommendations that most top performing sales reps that I know take advantage of. And also, before we get into everything, just to give a super quick 1 to 2 minute introduction of myself and also into my background. For those who are unfamiliar, when I was 16 years old, I founded a talent management company for YouTubers called Power TV. And what I like to say about the talent management business is that if you enjoy pain, suffering, and sadness, it's the best job in the world because it's a really, really tough business to be in. But we basically advised YouTubers on how to grow their channels, get more views. We started that company about 3.5 years ago. At the time, I had nothing, probably less than $20 at the most in my bank account. And then over 3.5 years, we grew it to over 10 million in sales, doing over 10 billion views a year across the agency. We also represented many of the largest stars on YouTube. This is actually a picture of one of our clients, Jake Paul. He's a former Disney star and was also the #1 YouTuber in the world in 2017. I am the shorter and also less muscular person on the left. Uh, um, but anyways, guys, so fast forward a little bit near the end of 2017, we were successfully acquired. And then after we exited, I founded a new company called MailTag, which, as Matt talked about, is a free software for your Gmail, which helps you basically make more sales in less time and also work more productively. We currently serve around 14,000 businesses worldwide, and we'll talk about that later. But the reason I tell you this is not to brag about our acquisition or anything like that. It's rather to segue into some of the lessons that I've learned throughout that 3.5-year period of building the agency. So over the years, I've probably managed, I want to say, close to 40 sales professionals. I've been able to really study what separates the high achievers from the rest, which leads us to the question of what makes the super successful salespeople different from everyone else. Are they just born out of the womb as rainmakers, right? Are they better looking than the rest of us? Are they just extroverts and energetic all the time? And the answer is no, no, and no. What I've learned is that success in sales really doesn't have anything to do with any of these things. And in fact, the best salespeople in my experience are actually introverts, not extroverts. And I actually think the reason for this is because most introverts actually listen to their prospects a heck of a lot more than extroverts do. But what is it? What makes the super successful salespeople different from all the rest? And in my view, I think it comes down to one word: habits. And I think John C. Maxwell put it best when he said, "You'll never change your life until you change something that you do daily." So that's really what I wanted to focus this webinar on. So without further delay, here are the 3 habits that I've observed that virtually all highly successful salespeople basically live by. So #1, ask for referrals and stay in your warm market. As a general rule of thumb, I would say that 80% of your sales, probably closer to 90 to 95%, should come from warm leads. In other words, new business that your existing customers refer to you. And the remaining percentage should come from cold outreaching. And the reason you want to heavily focus on referrals is because it can be really hard to get new business from people that really have no idea who you are. So approach your existing clients and just ask them for referrals. Just ask. Because the worst that can happen is that they say no. Or more likely, they just, it's pretty rare that someone just says no, but more likely they just, won't know anyone. What I like to say is that referrals are the lifeblood of all successful outbound businesses. So I would recommend, making a quick phone call or at least writing an email to each person in your client base, basically saying, "Hey, John, hope all is well. Kids are doing great. If it's not too much of a bother, do you mind if I ask you if there's anyone else you know who's in need of accounting services? We're expanding the firm and we'd really appreciate it if you could, perhaps refer any clients. Thank you so much for your business over the years. You make it possible for us to do what we love. And if there's anything you need, just feel free to reach out." And literally, you can use that word for word, or you can change it however you want. Additionally, you can have some type of referral perk, something along the lines of, we can also apply a $500 credit to your account for each new client. I think that could be really successful for, an accounting firm. Or again, anything along those lines. The bottom line is, though, asking for referrals is critical. And in my opinion, you should do it every single day until your client base is so full that you physically cannot support more clients. So habit #2 is prospect every day. And it was OG Mandino who once said, "What you plant now, you will harvest later," which is so true. And that applies, of course, not only to agriculture, but also to sales. When I was running the talent management business, each of our reps would send hundreds of cold outreaches every day. And we probably sent close to, I want to say probably around 1 million cold emails, 1 million every single year across the organization. And that's on top of asking for referrals. And the reason for this is simple. High achieving salespeople just never let their pipeline dry up, ever. And as long as your firm has the headcount to keep up with the size of your new client base, you should be speaking with new potential clients all the time. I mean, there's really no excuse not to be at maximum capacity. And by the way, there are a couple of other reasons why I recommend outreaching every day. Number one, if you don't continually practice selling, you will get rusty. And the best way to keep your selling skills sharp is by practicing as often as you can. And number two, without daily progress, you will plateau. In other words, you can get very comfortable and stop doing all the things that made you successful in the first place. I think it was Darren Hardy who put it best when he said, nothing fails like success, which is so true. And I'll give you a real example of this. When we hit 500 million monthly views across the agency, we became really comfortable. And we were just not as hungry to continue, reaching for the next big goal. And it's because we became comfortable with our success and we stopped doing the things that made us successful in the first place. So again, daily outreaching is critical because it really keeps your selling skills sharp and it forces you to continue expanding. All right, so habit number 3 is follow up, and follow up. In my experience, it takes approximately 5 follow-ups before a potential customer will respond on average. And on the surface, that may seem demotivating, to send outreaches and not hear back, but it should not be. And here's why. There are many reasons for why your prospect may not get back to you as quickly as you may like. Your prospect may be interested in what you have to offer, but maybe they're busy in whatever they're doing at that very moment when your outreach arrives. Maybe they, simply forgot to reply to you. Your prospect may be interested, but maybe they're traveling and they may not even have access to their email. Your prospect may be interested, but perhaps your email simply got buried, or lost in their inbox. The list goes on, right? There could be hundreds of reasons for why someone doesn't respond to you. And by the way, all legitimate reasons, not one having to do with being uninterested in your proposal. Don't get me wrong though. I mean, you're going to contact a lot of people and they're just not going to be interested in whatever, for whatever reason. And that's a-okay. Because at the end of the day, we're all in sales and rejection really is the name of the game. But regardless of the reason, there's no excuse not to follow up. And again, personally, I would recommend following up at least 5 times. So just to recap, habit number 1, ask for referrals and stay in your warm market. Habit number 2, prospect every day. And habit number 3, follow up, and follow up. So before I turn it back over to Matt in a few minutes here, the last couple of things that I wanted to talk about, some extra bonus tips to help you in sales, and also some technology recommendations to help you work much more productively. But even before we get to that, there is a debate that that is sort of going on about which is better, inbound versus outbound. Basically to know which one is better. Should I do inbound or outbound to get clients for my accounting firm? And for those who don't know the difference, inbound is where you create content, whether it's videos on YouTube, blog posts to rank at Google, and then people search and discover you that way. And then once you provide free value in that format, they contact you and they give you business. That's inbound. Outbound is where you go out and contact people and ask for business that way. My answer in short is that you should do both. And here's why. Outbound is not a replacement for inbound. Outbound should be the bedrock for getting new business, outreaching new clients, asking for referrals, etc. But inbound should complement those efforts because they work really well together. Now, I may be biased on this. I mean, I do run, an outbound sales platform, but I personally prefer outbound over inbound because you just have more control over your future. For instance, with inbound, you cannot control how many links, how many link clicks you get in the search results. But with outbound, you have total control over how many emails you're sending, how many referrals you're asking for. And I should also note that outbound isn't just about, emailing and making phone calls, although it is mostly that. Outbound is also about getting out. Outbound is about getting out in networking at entrepreneurial events, for example. Because as you can imagine, entrepreneurs go to networking conferences and they absolutely need accounting for their businesses. So that's my answer to the debate on inbound versus outbound. Moving on to the next topic here on technology recommendations outside of the MailTech platform. And by the way, I should also note that I do not receive any compensation for recommending these. But number one, there's a great browser extension tool called Clearbit, which allows you to find almost anyone's email. So for example, if you type BizInc into the search box, you can find virtually everyone, all the top executives at BizInc, as seen on screen. So that's pretty helpful. If you're trying to onboard a very specific person at a company, I would definitely recommend taking a look at Clearbit. There's another great tool called Hunter as well. Basically does the same thing as Clearbit. Number two, another great browser extension tool is Grammarly. It's a tool that not only corrects your spelling errors, but also your grammar errors as you type online. And this is actually a pretty popular tool. I think they have like 10 million users. Probably a few of you probably use it. But the reason I mention it is because if you're communicating as a professional, you do not want to make any typos, right? So this is definitely a must-have tool as well. And then lastly, number three, there's another great browser extension tool called Gordias, which helps you write things like 10 times faster. And it basically allows you to use what are called keyboard shortcuts to instantly paste pre-written messages. So for example, if you find yourself, typing the same thing over and over again, such as, thank you so much for your time, you can actually turn this into a shortcut. So for example, you can paste that sentence by typing the word thanks and then hitting the tab key on your keyboard. And then it'll paste the entire paragraph, which is really, really helpful. So those are my top three technology choices. But on the topic of technology recommendations, I'd also love to take a quick moment, of course, to share two extra bonus tips to help you make even more sales. And this actually sort of ties into why we created the MailTag platform in the first place. So first, bonus tip number one: great salespeople follow up quickly. In my experience, the best time to follow up with a potential customer is the moment they're thinking about you. And of course, the worst time to follow up and call a potential customer is when your prospect is busy doing something. So for example, it's not a great time to make a follow-up call when your prospect is, sleeping or in a meeting or at dinner with their family or at the movies. So that's the first reason why we actually created MailTag. Our platform has tons of free features you're able to use for absolutely no cost. The first of which allows you to track your emails in real time. And when your emails get open, you can actually receive a real-time alert right on your desktop. And you can also receive an email alert as well. And that's great because it enables you to call or email your prospects the moment your outreach is being read, or your accounting proposal, or any of your emails. And then secondly, bonus tip number two: the time that your emails are delivered can actually be much more important than the email itself. And the reason for this is because if your recipient misses your email, it actually doesn't matter what's in your email. So if you send your outreaches to prospects located internationally or in other time zones, or even in the same time zone, you don't want your emails to arrive at 2 a.m. or midnight, because your prospect will probably miss your email altogether. So we have a free tool called email scheduling, which allows you to write your emails now and then send them later. So you can just type your email as you normally would and then choose when you want it to be sent. And then the email will be stored as a draft and then automatically sent at the specified time. So now you can write your email proposals at any time and then schedule it to arrive at for example, 5:02 a.m. in your prospect's local time. So again, both of those features are tracking and scheduling are completely free. We do have a premium version of the service available, which costs $25 monthly, and that gives you access to features like Salesforce integration. But as Matt talked about, I think in his email to everyone, everyone here gets 50% off their subscription. Or you're more than welcome to simply stay on the free plan that we have as well. There's no pressure to upgrade. So I know I've been talking for a while. Thank you guys for your time and attention, and hope this presentation was helpful. And I'd love to open it up for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask away.
Hey, thanks so much, Alex. That was an amazing presentation, and I've been taking a few notes because there's certainly lots we could be implementing in BizInc. So I might be asking you some questions afterwards myself. But we do have some questions coming in. First question is from Marie, and she asks, can too many follow-ups turn people off from engaging with your business?
My opinion on this is that you have to be aggressive, and you have to, if you believe in what you're selling, if you believe in your proposal, you should be aggressive. And I think aggressive, sort of gets a sort of a negative connotation towards it. But if you really believe that your product or service can help someone and accomplish their goals and do it better than anyone else, you have an obligation to, make sure that that person, gets your services. So I would say probably, maybe, but who cares? If they're not going to buy, they're not going to buy. If they are going to buy, you should, be aggressive.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one other kind of maybe additional question or point I'd make there would be, we're always telling firms to niche or focus their marketing. So by doing that, I think you should only be, I think implied in what you say, Alex, is you should only be reaching out to the right people. You're not just doing this scattergun. Would you be doing some research before you did your cold outreach, or would that be right?
100%. I mean, no one wants to feel as if they're another name, in a spreadsheet, that you're just going down the spreadsheet cells outreaching. If you put yourself in your prospect's shoes, you wouldn't feel too special if you were just another name in a spreadsheet. So taking the time to, and I would caution you not to over personalize your outreaches. I've had a lot of success with having shorter outreaches as compared to longer outreaches. But I would say that, look, taking the time to personalize, especially for, a service as important as accounting, is critical.
Yeah, I think that's right. We've found some success with shorter stuff and like removing like what I would call fluff from the emails. So, if you've never met somebody, there's no point sort of like asking how they are or all that stuff, because they know that's, BS really. Like it's not like you know them or really care. The thing that gets you read is that you're actually doing them a favor by being shorter. It's a politeness to just get to the point. But to me, the personalization is if you can know something specific about their business or a pain point and talk to that's what's going to engage them. Would you agree on that?
100%. Look, if you're just writing an email to someone that you've never met and you're complimenting them and whatnot, people can really see through that. That's why I really talk about spending 90 to 95% of your time just getting introduced. It's so much easier to get clients as a referral than to just message someone out of the blue. But if you are going to message someone out of the blue, what I would recommend is that you mention people that they're familiar with. And actually, what I'll do, we sort of had less time than I expected. So if everyone sends me an email, what I'll do is I'll send everyone the outreach templates. That
I was going to say, Alex, we can do that in a follow-up as well. So I don't want you to have to get bombarded with stuff. So we'll be doing a follow-up because I'll put your email address there if people do want to reach out. But we always follow up with the recording, and we'll be sending out those templates. So I know a couple of people have asked that they came up quite quickly and they were probably trying to type them, but we'll send those to you as like a Word doc or a Google doc or something like that, so that you've got all of that stuff. So don't worry, we'll do all of that for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just didn't think it would be a good use of everyone's time to read 20 pages of outreach templates. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to answer. I don't see the chat box, but that's because I'm actually quite a noob at technology.
No,
Um,
no, we hide that from you so you don't get distracted. So I'll keep reading. There's plenty of good questions coming in. So just to reiterate, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar to everybody along with those templates. Um, so kind of more on a technical question here. Elizabeth asks, how is mail tag different from HubSpot?
yeah, so HubSpot is more of a CRM, and we instead of competing with the CRMs, then uh, you know that's really not our business. We work with CRMs, so our product actually, for example, has Salesforce integration. So you could instead of, for example, so instead of trying to be a CRM, we work with the CRMs. So for example, you can automatically BCC your emails to Salesforce or HubSpot. So we actually have people that use the HubSpot CRM, but also use the mail tag extension. Uh,
And I mean, if I just explain how we use mail tag, one of the things I really like about MailTag, first of all, is that you don't really see the software. My favorite software is not software where you have to learn an interface. And like Alex showed, when somebody clicks on one of those emails, particularly on from a sales point of view, but not just that, we know that's a good time to contact them. So, that might seem creepy to some people, but it's actually it's a politeness, because they're thinking about you and you can reach out to them. And often people are like, hey, that's cool, I was just thinking about you. And, sometimes you say, well, actually, we knew that kind of thing. And they don't mind. We use a CRM called Zoho, and that's just a whole separate thing. That's where we store all our leads, our customer data. So MailTag's something we very much just use through our inbox, to sort of see who's opening our emails, to send out some automated emails, or to choose when to send them. So it's kind of like what I'd say is like a very focused, light application that's very powerful. Is that fair enough, Alex?
yeah, absolutely. So, as Matt talked about, we're really not trying to be a replacement for a CRM. We're sort of a complement to a CRM, if that makes sense. Uh, what I recommend is that if you go to the Google Chrome store, and we'll send everyone a link to this as well. But if you search MailTag, you can add it to your browser, and you'll instantly understand how to use it. One of the things that really separates us from many of our competitors is that we're really just trying to do three things extraordinarily well, rather than 20 or 50 things. If you've used some of the other extensions that have couple million users, like Mail Tracker, example, they they have a lot of features that are just not it's sort of a bloated experience almost. So we really try to focus on just doing three things extraordinarily well, which is tracking, scheduling, and auto follow up, and that's sort of where the product focus is, not 20 or 50 features.
Yeah, cool. So got a couple more questions coming in. Liz asks, could you mention a couple of really good prospecting methods for accountants and bookkeepers?
So I think that the thing is to try to get, as I spoke about earlier, the thing is to get out as much as you can. If you can go to networking conferences where entrepreneurs meet, I think this is I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States. There's a great conference which is the Inc. conference. They probably have international conferences as well. But going to conferences and actually meeting with entrepreneurs who are just starting their businesses is really important. I think it's difficult to build relationships online, but it is definitely possible. So if you can find startup groups, for example, forums where people are, launching their businesses and looking for ideas for their businesses. Those are the people that I would say are, in need of accounting services. Um, I mean, there's lots of like little forums. For example, there's I forget the name of it. I'm blanking. I'll send it in an email. But basically, you know, go where the entrepreneurs are, go where the business leaders are, uh, and especially people who are in their first year of business. Um, that's, I think, the most important thing, because if you're in your, second or third or fourth year, you're probably, you probably already have an accountant, and it's sort of hard to, sell people on why to switch accountants. So I think the real key is to, uh, go to people who are just starting, and go to people who are just, getting their business off the ground, and, present yourself as a startup accountant. For example, you want to build your brand in a way that, people come to you and recommend people to you. And the reason I would really focus on the entrepreneur group is because people that are entrepreneurs often know many other business leaders. So I know Matt, and I know, 20 or 30 different CEOs, and, you know, I can recommend a whole, Rolodex of people, uh, who need websites. And yeah, so that would be my suggestion. Go where the entrepreneurs are. Try to build physical relationships as much as you can. That can be, 100 times stronger than a digital relationship. But if you're going to outreach someone out of the blue, mention people in your outreach that they already know. So, for example, we do accounting services for your competitor. That will instantly catch, their attention. Um,
Hmm. I definitely double down that, we've
give me
built a bit.
it could be someone that they know.
Yeah, definitely. And I double down on the fact that it is really hard to build relationships online. At Biz Inc., we've built like a global business, and done most of it online. But face to face is really, really powerful. And any opportunity we have to do that, we take. And I think predominantly, most of you will be running local businesses, firms operating locally. That becomes really, really important. Um, One final question, unless anyone else wants to ask one using the questions panel. You got any recommendations for good books on sales?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two great books. I guess one way to answer that question is, what are the books that I gift the most? So, The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, also by Darren Hardy. Uh, my entire office is just littered with books. If I could, I don't know if my camera's working, but I could just show you my office. It's basically a library. It's Yeah, there's so many great books. There's The One Thing by Gary Keller. There's I would say, on that list, if you're going to get one, I would have to say How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's a must read. Um,
One of the best, right? Like I honestly think a lot of business books you could read, you can read them, but then there's like a better version that they've kind of stolen some stuff from, or it's like a watered down version. And that one is what, like coming up 100 years old or something, and it's
yeah,
still one
absolutely.
of the best. It is an incredible book, such a modern book, and I think it doesn't age because it's about people. It's not about selling per se. It's about people, and that, it's such a keen observation of how humans act and interact.
Oh yeah, it's probably the book that I gift the most. But I would say if there were only two that you had to choose from, if you were on a tight budget, I would say the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster is so phenomenal. It's by Darren Hardy. He publishes Success Magazine, and it really talks about the importance of, sales and business. He talks about how you have to spend probably 90% of your time, marketing and selling, and that's really the ratio that most of the, larger companies in the world really use, even though it may not, look like it. But you're as an accountant, you'll probably spend 90% of your time, selling the services of the firm, and 10% of the time actually doing the accounting services, I would say.
I think that probably the mix would be far the other way for most, but I think that's a good place to end it, which is to think that, if you want to grow, you have to invest in that, and that means investing time into sales and marketing. And the way to do that is by creating habits, which you've really clearly outlined. So thanks very much for making the time to come along today, Alex.
It's really my pleasure. Thank you, Matt, for having me, and thank you everyone for attending. This is my first webinar, so I hope it was helpful for you, and I hope it was awesome.
It was. Now, you did a great job. And just to reiterate, we'll be sending out the recording, those resources, so things like the mail templates. And what we'll also do is get a list of things like those books that we talked about, and some of those things that we mentioned that you might not have time to jot down. We will get those into the email and sent out to you in a couple of days. So just leaves me to once again thank you all for coming. Thank you, Alex, and wish you all a really good rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.